with yesterday's video, I figured I might as well do a cheap setup for D3 for some of you guys to help you guys out. Now, I'm going to say a couple things. One, I know there are cheaper setups to doing this. I know that. This is just how I do it. You can mix and match however you guys want, fitting the stats and whatnot. But I'm going to give you guys the foundation of how cheap fleet building works for this event farm. Second, most of the ships I use are primarily 120s, yes. If you want to level up ships, then don't listen to this video. This video is to make it so you guys have as little oil spent per clear at D3 so you guys can maximize how many chappy gun prints you guys get. If you want to level up ships, don't watch this video. If you want to watch it for efficiency or whatever reasons, go for it. That being said, D3 is this event's hotspot grind. Not only is D3 a common place for most people to grind because it's fast, it gives a lot of points, etc. But now there's more incentives to farming it because now we have Chappie's gun. Chappie's gun being in D3 one of the best light cruisers guns in the game as of right now. Let's talk about how to build ships. So before I start this off, ship building or fleet building for event farming is very simple when it comes to hard mode. Hard mode is C and D, which I'm in as of right now, and you have these requirements, right? You have to fit these requirements, otherwise you cannot start the sortie. If you're missing any of these requirements, you cannot do it, and you must have at least one ship in each of these quadrants. If it says heavy cruiser, destroyer, you must have at least one ship in one of these these spots in order to fill it. You notice how my Prince of Wales right here is not in a required spot. If I remove my Washington right here, she will not, and I cannot start. Well, I don't have the stats regardless, but I cannot start because I need a ship. Well, well, if this was not a battleship, then yeah, I can't fit that. But you guys get the point here. So, with that being said, how you do most D3 fleets is very simple. If you want to be as efficient as possible when it comes to D3 fleet, you must do a 1-1 setup. Now, in this case, I have Saratoga and Suzu, right, which I'll talk about later. Now, Saratoga is a carrier, doesn't fit these requirements, right? Anti-air, firepower doesn't fit any of these requirements, but it's fine because if you're trying to be cheap with these kind of fleet builds, you put all the requirements, or you put most of the requirements for these stats in the boss fleet. Why? Because mob fleets are the ones that you're going into 6 sorties with. This is the fleet that's going to fight 6 times, while this fleet, the boss fleet, fights 1 time. Meaning it's okay to be a little bit more expensive in the boss fleet, but not in the mob fleet. Like imagine, if I do 6 fights and this is 20 oil, that's 120 oil. Now, imagine if this was 30 oil. Now 30 times 6 is 180 oil. You see what I'm talking about? The more ships you have in the mob fleet, the more expensive it's going to cost in the long run. So you want to be as cheap as possible when it comes to the mob fleet and let your boss fleet do all the heavy lifting when it comes to the required stats for hard mode. Now that's done, let's talk about fleets. The first fleet I want to show you guys is a very straightforward one. Saratoga and Suzu. These are probably a few of the best ships as of right now when it comes to cheap farming for events. Sarah being an amazing wave clearer, and Suzu being a very durable and extremely good wave clearer as well. Let's talk about this ship in particular. So Saratoga, how I like to build my Saratoga is Corsairs, 2 dive bombers, and 2 steam catapults. You can mix and match however you guys want. She doesn't really need the steam catapults, I just did it there for more damage. And for Suzu this event, I have the Warhog, or the Hedgehog. If you guys don't have this, it's from the from Hal's event, I think, the HMS event we had last time, or something like that. If you guys don't have this, a submarine radar works perfectly fine. I don't think I have any right now, but you just slot that in. Depth charge, this thing right here. If you guys have this, just slot that in instead of the Hedgehog. But this is how I geared my Suzu. A lot of wave clear. She doesn't need this health sustain that much, but I slot in regardless. And now we have damage for the Saratoga. Very easy, right? In the boss fleet, you can mix and match however you guys want. For firepower and anti-air, when I think firepower, I think anti-air, I think USS ships. Why? Because USS ships have some of the highest anti-air and battleships have some of the highest firepower. So in this case, I'm going to go with battleships, specifically USS battleships. Now we have Washington here, and we have San Diego to cover most of the anti-air. If you guys don't have San Diego, Astuzi's retrofit works too. Whatever you have for high AA stats, because fitting the high AA stats is one of the big things when it comes to cheap farming. And I also have Caston, or I also have Downs here to round out the anti-air. I couldn't unfortunately fit everything into a 2-1 setup, but I'd slot it in a Caston or a Downs. There's only 7 more oil. It fills up the rest of the stats. It's good to go. And I have Prince of Wales here for boss damage. You can use whatever battleship you want, but because she has the Royal Alliance with the USS ships and whatnot, I like to use Prince of Wales for this setup right here. Very, very simple. This right here is a cost of 22 oil. So 22 oils times 6 is 132. This boss fleet right here is 18 plus 30, which is 48. So this right here is 180 oil plus the initial 10 entry fee, meaning this cost right here is 190 oils as the first fleet. And here we have the second fleet. For this one, it's a lot more riskier, but definitely does work. My fleet here consists of whatever battleship you guys want. I'm using Maryland here to show you guys a cheap example. If you guys want to use a little bit expensive battleship for EXP or whatever, go for it. Just remember, try to keep the levels at least around 110, if not a little bit higher, to make your life a lot easier. So, again, we have Phoenix here built with some anti-air guns and whatever. So I don't use a baguette gun here because notice how the baguette gun doesn't have 25 anti-air like the twin 127s. So primarily using the USS guns to get anti-air out of. You guys can use whatever gun you guys want to fit the requirements though. I got a little bit of buffer. So you're asking me why I'm using an anti-air radar right here. It is to compensate for the fact that my Enterprise is ringed right now. Without this ring, I can probably drop this or whatever and add something else, but for the sake of this video, I'm going to give myself a handicap by using a dead slot right here and show you guys I can still clear perfectly fine. And for Enterprise, I have a very, very simple loadout: Corsairs, Helldivers. I'm using Avengers. You guys can use whatever. You can use Ryuseis, Barracudas, whatever fits your playstyle. I think Barracudas is fine because this boss is very, very easy. Also, you don't want to risk missing. So if you want to use Barracudas, those will work as well. For Prince of Wales, I'm using a standard loadout. Also, make sure, guys, when you're equipping your battleships, whatever, please try to use AA because the mobs here are medium heavy armor for the most part. The AP is going to help out a lot. You can use the HE on your Vanguard, but make sure your backline is AP. Using AP gun right here. If you guys don't have the 406 or the AP MK6, if you guys can, go to the Gear Labs and make the cheap whatever gun right here. This one. This works perfectly fine as an AP substitute. So use that if you guys want to. But going back to my original fleet. I'm using the USS guns again for anti-air because it gives 15 right here while still giving some decent firepowers. One anti-air slot on my Prince of Wales, and for the Vanguards we have just a very simple loadout of just anti-air USS guns and a lot of anti-airs right here. So this setup right here is not as good as my Saratoga because I really like using Saratogas, but if you guys really want to use a BB setup right here, this works fine. Also, this setup is very heavy on these anti-air radars that I have on my ships. So if you guys don't have a lot of these, then I wouldn't suggest using this setup at all. You're gonna need about probably 5 or 6 of them, but this fleet is definitely another one you can use as well. And here we have the third fleet setup for D3. This is the cheapest version I can think of as of right now. There's really cheaper setups, but I'm not going to go into details with those. So basically, it comes to the core concept of Saratoga and Phoenix, but since the carrier slot is not paired up with the light cruiser slot because it's at the top one, you're going to have to slot in a fodder ship. In this case, I'm using a level 1 Beagle, or she leveled up, and Phoenix here. So this Beagle doesn't do much. The purpose of Beagle is to go down. Unfortunately, yes, her purpose is to go down. But before she goes down, though, I equipped her with a Pearls tier. You can if you want to. Otherwise, it's not necessary at all. This is enough stain to begin with. The typical Saratoga build right here. Nothing too crazy. And then Phoenix is equipped the same way as always. The typical guns, anti-air, and the Hedgehog. If you don't have Hedgehog, use the radar. That works as well. Make sure you're equipped with a lot of anti-air. So I'm using USS guns because USS guns have anti-air as always. And the boss fleet is very simple right here. We have South Dakota to mix it up instead of using the typical Washington or North Carolina. We're using her. Make sure we have a lot of firepower right here. We have Prince of Wales here. You can if you use her if you want to. Otherwise, you don't have to. If you're lacking AA stats somewhere, do equip more USS guns though. But if you don't want to, if you have enough though, definitely equip the Belfast gun for more firepower. But if you're lacking there though, again, equip USS guns. They have more anti-air stat. And Sandy is the standard build right here. AA guns right here for more stats. You guys got the deal. The total of this right here, assuming if Beagle sinks on the first fight, or whatever ship you're using for destroyer, I use a level 1 to sink immediately, sinks right away. This is about 178 oil for a clear. Very cheap, nothing too crazy about it. This is the fleet I use if I want to super serious farm this event. But since I want EXP right now, I'm not going to be too bothered with it. That's basically it.